1 week ago today, I went public against the propaganda piece, Kony 2012. And my only regret is that I didn't come out against it more hardcore, because we've been proven 100% right. And I'm not happy about that. You know what's happening? Congress has got resolutions to invade all of Africa, introduced yesterday, saying because of the film Kony 2012. I've done more research now, and it turns out George Soros, Samantha Powers at the White House, Obama, they're all behind it. And of course they are. Many of them are in the film, like known war criminal George W. Bush, who launched the war in Iraq that killed over 1 million people. This is so incredible. They are now invading with NATO troops, UN troops, Australian troops, and it turns out that WorldNet Daily last year already had this information and was exposing it. And it's got Soros, it's got Obama, it's got the UN, all saying that they would use humanitarian cover, war is peace, to invade Africa. And here is the resolution in the House now, bipartisan, racing through. And I've got a copy of the resolution right here. Here is the bill. The resolution introduced calls for, among other things, expanding the number of regional forces in Africa to protect civilians and placing restrictions on individuals or governments found to be supporting Kony. All this is a pretext to invade all over the continent using AFRICOM, the new U.S. command that's been set up there. Now, we saw last year the UN go into the Ivory Coast and kill tens of thousands of people and overthrow the elected government and install a new nightmare system. We've seen Angelina Jolie and others hail Libya as the model of the new humanitarian war, which has killed over 40,000 people. They're exterminating the blacks. The place is a living nightmare with most of its power and water off. They have wrecked the jewel of Africa that was helping industrialize the whole area. The big global corporate interest at the UN and Agenda 21 openly do not want the industrialization of the third world, especially Africa. They want them in backwards squalor. They fund different warlords and then turn on them later to keep that continent in constant conflict so the big interest can come in with their mercenaries and easily take over any area they want. The UN has been caught financing and supporting massacres in the name of environmentalism, pushing people off their land and killing people. And that's why I get so angry when I see a bunch of cynical people in the Kony 2012 movement talking to adults like they're kids going, it's fun. Oh, yeah, we're going to do something. It's non-threatening. It is a total psyop. This is how they come in and actually get the population through Facebook, through Twitter, through social media to get behind all these new wars and proxy wars and behind revolutionary groups funded by the globalists who start these wars in Africa, Central Asia, the Middle East, you name it. I wish I was wrong about Kony 2012, but unfortunately, I was absolutely right. You look at who funds them. It's J.P. Morgan Chase. You look at the cynical glamour shots of the people picked out of central casting of the do-gooder, liberal white person there to help people. And now they're saying, oh, there's this bad black man. He hurts children. I mean, it's literally at a Sesame Street level in these Kony videos where they go, hello, everybody. It's fun. We're going to get the man worse than Hitler, worse than Bin Laden. It's fun.
He is the world's worst. Adolf Hitler, Osama bin Laden, Joseph Kony. It's literally the best piece of propaganda we've ever made.
And meanwhile, it's the UN engaged in most of the slaughter in Africa, bar none. It's the big culprit in its own documents meant to carry out genocide while getting all of the bleeding hearts of the West to give money to UNICEF and all the rest of this to help the Africans. They have photo ops with Angelina Jolie handing out food to the starving, kids that are dying. This is so horrible. It's so evil. And it is the most sickeningly transparent propaganda I've ever seen. I mean, look at Bono, who has raised massive amounts of money to supposedly help poor people in Africa. And then you learn he's given a little over 1% of the money he's raised actually to the groups, and he's a front for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, who's carrying out eugenics and population control, again, under the rubric and the banner of humanitarian aid. This is the West, under State Department Memorandum 200, openly stating that their goal is to use war, famine, and poisons in vaccines to reduce population in the third world. And it's got all these Hollywood stars and people as the fronts for it, many of them believing that they're actually helping people. Here's the good news. Across the media spectrum and across the world, especially in Uganda, people are coming out in droves saying this Kony thing is a fraud. It's a pretext to invade. Now that they admit the invasion is beginning, people are really waking up and the thing is imploded. And everyone is seeing it for what it is, slacktivism. A bunch of trendies now getting behind pro-war humanitarian invasions. So the good news is people are seeing right through this propaganda and very quickly. The bad news is the globalists, the big mega corporations that are going to loot Africa even worse than they have in the past with this new neo-colonialism have already pulled the trigger. They're already got their special forces scoping everything out in the last year on record. Now the big invasion is about to start. And if you dare criticize the mass murder that's about to take place, well, you're not a humanitarian. You see, they get a bunch of idiots and a bunch of trendies to sign on to a war. And once they've done it, they don't want to admit that they were conned, and they'll commit to it all the way. And, of course, the goals of this weren't just to invade Africa. It's to set up the International Criminal Court of the totally wicked UN as the arbiter of all good. And they've got hundreds of people they want arrested. And next on the list are warlords in countries all over Africa that just so happen to be sitting on top of gold, diamonds, oil, and other precious minerals. And so it's very, very elementary. They simply have a bad man piece that they move onto the map wherever they want.
This is the face of our enemy. Look at him, the Eurasian butcher, the reveler in atrocities, the world criminal. This
and they didn't have Bin Laden anymore, so they said, here's Hitler, here's Bin Laden, here's the new bad guy. You can all feel good now with your 5 minutes of hate directly out of 1984, and you can all scream that war is peace and get behind this.
Peace! Universal peace! War is peace! War is peace! War is peace!
And our populations are sold on war in the name of humanitarianism. It's so horrible to see this happening. And it's so sad to see people conned. The globalists don't invade countries because they want to help people. They invade them because they want to exploit them and because they want to reduce their population. That's on record. And because they can't scare us with fake WMDs anymore, because they've been caught with other war propaganda over and over again, they've now gone to a more sophisticated model of calling it a humanitarian intervention. Doesn't matter if it's not true. By the time people figure that out, the war has already happened. And that's what they've done here. People are getting sophisticated. That's why the system's having to package war now as peace. But for all of you trendies out there who've already committed to this lie, and so you don't want to admit you've been conned, and so you're going to defend it no matter what, listen, if you really want to help Africans, go volunteer over there, bring them water filters, bring them medicine, do research into real charities that actually help people. They're out there. Don't give money to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in their front with U2's Bono, who openly only gives about 1.5% of the money he raises to them, and that's with strings attached. Stop trusting people just because they dress like a rock star. I mean, this is sick. This is sick. And I beg of you to just look at the articles we posted here, go research it for yourself. This is all run by the controlled left globalists, who are a bunch of eugenicists and who are extremely dangerous and who want to loot the daylights out of Central African resources. So if you actually care about humanity and you actually don't want to see people in the third world slaughtered, get up off of your fat, trendy asses and research this information and find out it's true. For God's sakes, have some decency. I'm done. The ball's in your court.